So hello to everyone who's joining us now. We're going to be starting in about 3 minutes, just to sweep up any final stragglers. So just hang tight, maybe grab a coffee, and we will start imminently. Thanks. While we're waiting, what's a pirate's favorite piece of content marketing?
I don't know, Nick. What is a parrot's favorite piece of content marketing?
A webinar.
Oh.
Sure. Sorry, a little bit of pre-entertainment. We're nearly there, and you can do without my terrible, terrible jokes. We're going to start in just under 2 minutes. Just a quick reminder to everyone, we're going to be doing a Q&A at the end. So if you have any questions that you want to ask, just pop them in the chat section at the side, and we will do our best to get to them.
I think we managed to get all our family and friends on the webinar now, Nick. Looking at the number of people calling in, that's fantastic.
Good. Okay, we've got some great people. Definitely the extended family. Right, so I guess with that, we can start up. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We're looking to be done by about 20 to the hour. So if you're already looking at the door, you only have about another 37 minutes to wait. We're also recording this, so if you miss anything or want to share it with anyone who hasn't been able to make it, you can. This is the first webinar in a series, so keep your eyes peeled at the end of September when we're going to be focusing on how to get the most from your existing assets. We're also, as I mentioned, going to have a Q&A at the end, so please get submitting your questions for Catalina. Wherever your audience are, whether they're internal or external, video is the best way to communicate online. That means that everyone's doing it. So it's getting pretty noisy out there. Coupled with the fact that it takes an investment of time, if not money, makes it really important to get it right. So how do you go about doing that? Well, that's what we're going to spend the next 36.5 minutes getting to grips with. I'm Nick. I'm co-founder of Casual. We were one of the first online video production companies back in 2006. Since then, we've worked with and advised companies of all shapes and sizes on how to get the most from video. I recently wrote a book. I promise I won't plug it too much. So I've spent more time thinking about all of this stuff than I think anyone really should. That's enough about me. I'd like to introduce my co-host. On the line from London today is our UK Managing Director, producer extraordinaire. He has 18 years of experience in production, and he's done pretty much everything a filmmaker can do. He looks after key accounts, including Reckitt Benckiser, Rolls-Royce, Red Bull, Adobe, and Vodafone. Ollie Atkinson.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Nick. It's great to be here, and thanks very much. Looking forward to this presentation. How to get the most out of your video. I mean, who wouldn't really want to do that? So we've had kind of a few discussions about this, as you might imagine, over the years, and also recently about what subjects we should cover. But we kind of wanted to get the ball rolling with a sweep across the many different areas in which you can improve the efficiency, the quality, and the return on your video content. So, and as you said, Nick, it's a very hot area right now. Everyone wants to produce more and more content, but how do you get the quality and for the right cost and raise your content above the noise that's out there? And we're also extremely pleased to be joined by Vodafone's Global Head of Learning, Catalina Schveninger. Hello, Kat. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Hi, guys.
Hey, hi.
So you've been working in HR and employer brand for a number of years now. Can you give us a bit of an overview?
Of course, and I think, thank you for having me. I think it's always a pleasure to talk to you guys and to share some of the learnings we had on the journey together with a broader audience.
Oh, we've lost Catalina. So, oh, here she comes. I know that does look like me, but that's actually Catalina. There we go. We just need your
what
mic.
happened?
There we go. You're back. You're back.
All right. Sorry about that. Although we have super powered connectivity here at Vodafone, something must have happened. Anyway, again. No, thanks for having me. I think I'm delighted to share some of the learnings we had on the journey doing great video for employer brand consideration awareness with the guys at Casual. I think if you want to save 50 minutes to answer Nick's question, you can just buy his book and we're done. But he's got a lot of great tips and insights in his book. But joke aside, I've been in HR for way too many years. In the last couple of years, I've had the pleasure of working in Vodafone here in the global headquarters. First as a head of global recruitment and employer brand, and most recently as head of learning. And in both capacities, video is at the core of the communication strategy and of the good work we're doing. So I'm really delighted to share some of the things that we have learned on the way in the last couple of years to leverage the power of storytelling through video and partnering well, briefing well, finding the right narrative so that you can increase the awareness and consideration of your brand with film.
Thanks, Kat. I really appreciate you making the time to be on it, and I promise that wasn't the plug. So thank you. I guess the most important question really to answer is why video? Why should people use video?
That's a great question. I mean, as you said in the beginning, why would you invest money and effort in creating high quality video when there is so much user generated commodity type of content out there? We've never had so much content, ever before. And whilst user generated and in the moment gifts and whatnot is fantastic and it engages with your audiences, high quality video is something that has longer shelf life. If it's done well, it really tells the story of your people and your brand in a more significant way. And also, I think long term, it's really hard to talk about ROI, but the way I look at the return on investment is you can repurpose it, you can reuse it, you can engage in more meaningful way with your audiences. For example, some of the work we've done with you guys or with others still sits on our careers website, is still used in creating new content. So again, it might seem like it's a massive investment at the beginning, but if you do it well, you actually have a long-term output out of good video. So yeah, I mean, it's always about a balance, right? You have to have in the moment great user-generated, short videos of any quality, but at the same time, if you wanna really engage with the hearts and souls of your audiences, take the time and do proper stuff every now and again. I think it sticks. We all love a good video and a good advert. We all have our personal stories of our favorite movies and documentaries and whatnot. So use the same techniques to create your own employer brand storytelling videos using the same techniques.
I guess just so that the people who are dialing in have a sort of bit of a frame of reference for what we're talking about. I mean, some people may be familiar with some of the work that you've been doing at Vodafone, some may not. So I'm just going to play the Belonging film. Do you want to just give a brief overview of what this is about?
Oh, the Belonging film has a fantastic story. My colleague Karina Govinji, our previous head of diversity and inclusion, and I were talking about, how the diversity and inclusion agenda is moving towards more around belonging, getting people the reason to feel that they can bring their own self and belong in the workplace the same as they belonged in, in their day-to-day, in their circle of friends. And how can you tell that story? Vodafone has some fantastic stories around the work we're doing in diversity and inclusion. And was there a way to capture all of that into one story? And it was hard because we were very proud of the work we were doing with women returners, maternity policy. We were proud about the work we're doing with LGBT+, but we didn't have let's say a hero story about, capturing everything and the spirit of the inclusion of Vodafone. So we talked to the guys in Olin's team and said, okay, we've done all this work in the past with you around women, returners, about youth, about LGBT. Can we look at telling that in a more impactful way in one, with one asset? And I think the beauty of that, of the making of, let's say, the brief was just like that. Can we do something that sticks, that it's emotional, that tells the story while using our own people, and no more than that, right? So it was let's say it was a non-brief, and I think the output was fantastic. It's one of the videos that I'm mostly proud of. I think I always get a bit emotional. And we also had a fantastic cast of people across Vodafone, bringing that kind of diversity of thoughts, of minds, filled together. But also what was beautiful about it, we repurposed a lot of previous footage. So some parts, and you will see beautiful editing, beautiful style in terms of overlays, mosaic of diversity and all of that. But again, a lot of the footage was actually something we already had. So yeah, very pleased if you could share that and see if the others feel the same way. So obviously unbiased. I love this stuff.
I'm a determined person and I feel that people celebrate and respect that. We cultivate an environment where people feel empowered when they are true to themselves.
You make me feel good.
Belonging means being part of a group of people that makes the world a better place.
When you ask me where I've been, well, I know that
Belonging
you get
means not being conscious of yourself, just being happy.
I feel very free to be who I am, and that helps me accept other people.
Vodafone is a place where everyone can be themselves and everyone can be different. I keep my uniqueness, but I'm part of a bigger thing.
Belonging means something bigger than myself. To be part of a cause larger than me.
We have a very good, strong community of friends, and we all pull together.
For me, Vodafone is diverse,
Culture,
approachable, friendly, loving,
unique,
open,
respect,
all in one.
So there we go. I mean, you have a very sort of strong culture and values framework at Vodafone. What's the importance of that in the video content that you share?
It is very important. And if you think of culture, I think it's an overused word. What is culture? Is a set of beliefs and values that people share, right? That make a workplace unique and differentiate versus others. And we're lucky because the sense of belonging is part of the culture, alongside with other, great things that I won't bore you with. And I think in these videos, what's really interesting, it was completely unscripted. What we told the brilliant people who were in it was like, just talk from the heart, just say how you feel, and why you think you belong here versus belonging somewhere else, right? And that's when this authenticity is bringing the culture to life. You also have to be self-critical, because the tendency of creating very polished video is that you paint a front of house that then doesn't sync with the reality, right? So you can't overpromise and underdeliver. And that's why I think it's always great to use real people with their real stories versus creating something that looks like an advert. Because I think audiences these days, candidates are super smart and they have access to social media, to places where they can share feedback, and they find you out very quickly. So again, authenticity is very important, and telling that kind of story around the culture, how it feels to work here, what kind of people work here, give people a really good and filtered view of the reality. Once they obviously, once you want to capture their awareness and obviously later their consideration, convert them into eventually candidates, colleagues, or just brand ambassadors.
And I think from a kind of technical point of view on belonging, we interview them off camera, so you just hear the audio of their interview, and that's very much how you can get your contributors to relax. A lot of people in these companies haven't been on camera before, so it's quite important to make them feel as at ease as possible, because you put a camera in someone's face, even the most gregarious of people, they can all of a sudden kind of button up and not give you a great performance. So yeah, the authenticity really comes across in belonging because of that.
Yeah, and I think I would add to that in terms of a top tip, casting is very important, right? And of course, I guess the trick in casting is you might be tempted to take the ones that look better on camera or come across better on camera. They're super self-confident. They tell a good story. But I think casting done well shows the true diversity, because let's face it, there's no company out there that only hires models and super articulate people, right? So you have to bring that authenticity, give people a chance, and as Oli said, do stuff offline with them, put them at ease, because I myself, I hate being in front of camera. I prefer to be behind, right? But every time there is a camera on in my face, all the good spiel goes away. Right, and that's normal. But again, casting done well, it's crucial, and we've always partnered well with Casual. And to be fair, I mean, you guys taught us how to do good casting, right? While we thought would be great candidates in the beginning, maybe didn't turn out to be the candidates we chose to be on video.
Yeah,
a lot of the films that you've made, I mean, that was just one example. We haven't really got time to to go through all of them, obviously, or even just a small fraction of them. But you managed to get quite a lot of relatively creative work made. And one of the challenges I think a lot of our clients have is how to do the stuff that they really want to do, as opposed to the stuff that they feel like they're going to be able to squeeze through, or they don't want to take a risk. What are your sort of tips to people who to getting that creative work made?
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's always challenging, because if you think about your key stakeholders in terms of getting messages out, obviously PR, brand, they are both your biggest enemies and your best friends. So the trick is to make good friends with them from the beginning, because obviously they're there to defend the brand and make sure that everything that goes externally is consistent. Obviously, with that consistency, sometimes there is a risk of being too cliche or too standard or not bold enough, right? So it's always a give and a get. But I think my personal experience is, they are bright people working in these functions who have a role. If you bring them on the journey together and explain from the beginning, that you are targeting a different audience, and you need to slightly adjust your messaging and make it more playful or more risque sometimes to capture these audiences, they get it, right? As long as you obviously stick to the brand guidelines and have the right color and the right messaging, I think that's a balance to strike. I mean, in the work we've done with you, we've involved brand. So they felt that they were engaged in it, they were part of the creative process, and they had a say. We always made sure that they didn't have the final say, right? Because I think brand experts right now have realized that employer brand is an emerging standalone science, art, whatever you want to call it, function. And employer brand doesn't equal consumer brand, right? It has kind of the different purpose. Yes, of course, to the same audiences, but with a different purpose. And that's how you get stuff done. It's, I have a kind of a story with one of our more playful, let's say, videos that I hope you can guys play later. It's one of the, let's say, one of the best pieces of work we've done together in addition to Belong. And it was really funny because we've done the whole campaign, all the work, the casting. We had kind of the MVP done, and when I showed it to my senior HR directors, first there was a bit of silence in the room. Second, there was a bit like, I don't really get it and I don't really like it. And my reaction was, actually, that's great, guys, because guess what? You are not the target. So if you're telling me your 19-year-old daughter or your 25-year-old son doesn't like it, I would have an issue. But I guarantee that they will, and the fact that you don't means that we touched the right chords, right? So and again, I'm very lucky because I think people at Vodafone typically get it, and we I think historically had a more playful brand. I mean, look at the Voxy adverts, right? That says it all. If you have the guts to put those on telly, I think you get you get what kind of company we are. And then again, Voxy is a brand that targets youth, right? So again, it's not straightforward, and I know some companies have a tougher time than others, but we are lucky that that I think our creative people get this. But again, it's always helpful to be good mates with your PR and brand teams.
And from our side of it, that's how we kind of approached youth as well. Was that campaign? We thought, well, let's get our youngest filmmakers on it, and they'll really understand what they're doing in that space, and that tends to help it. I think yeah. Do
you refer to the youth project, the Vodafone Youth? I'll play that in just 1 second. I'd just like to add that all of the concepts that we're talking about today are covered in this book. I know it's already had a bit of a plug, but you can get it on Amazon. Or if you get in touch with us before the end of the month and mention the webinar, then we will send you a free copy. If you want a consultation with one of our producers, then they will be happy to take your call. And for your trouble, we will send you a copy of the book. But without further ado, plug aside, I will just play that video so you can see what we're talking about.
Cameras, I'm ready for showtime. Up Instagram next. Let it go viral. Moonwalking in the box. I am so Michael. Hardy, is it cool with you? We can do something that means slicing too. Grim next. Yeah, the slaughter got us out for hours. And the bomb sentence higher than the Eiffel Tower. Now I'm stunting like a big timer. The boys started from the bottom like Drake. I'm a big climber. Got my money up, turn the S to a dollar sign. Texting OB the promoter like it's Bob time.
The measure.
There you go. So, Ollie.
Yeah, so Catalina, we're just kind of, what would your recommendations for getting the video seen once it's been produced, once it's been through that creative process, you've done the whole production, you can't just put it on YouTube and have 1 or 2 views. How do you get it out there?
Well, getting out there, I mean, yeah, I think getting a great creative concept and product out is half the job done. So practically, even when you budget for production, you have to budget as much for the campaign following up, because what a shame would be to have fantastic, beautiful product that that nobody sees, right? So budget carefully, make sure that you have a campaign. Now, again, depends what purpose you're using the content for. So in my case, because I ran the Global Center of Expertise, my role was to raise awareness and consideration for the brand. So I didn't run the marketing campaigns, right? That I wasn't after specific groups of people for to apply. But obviously, ultimately, we love for everybody who engages with content to ultimately have call for action and either apply, like, or what sorts, right? So first, again, make sure that you know exactly the purpose of the content and try to a certain extent to measure the impact. Of course, you have the vanity KPIs, how many people liked and click-through rates through your application. You can also have other vanity KPIs, like how many awards you got. And I think we were lucky to get a couple of awards with our video. It's always great, especially when you get your internal senior stakeholders on board. It's always nice to pop in a couple of awards. But ultimately, make sure that you always have a plan in terms of how you bring it to life. And obviously, social media now gives us so many opportunities to push content more than ever before. So talk to your marketers, talk to your HR folks who are in recruitment and in recruitment marketing, and make sure that you have a robust plan to bring the content to life. And ultimately, just like with these campaigns, we targeted them in the beginning, we launched them, we did a big hoo-ha internally and externally, but later on, we have them sit on our careers website. We, every now and again, when we have a new campaign, we reuse them. As we did in the past, we also edit and add new content and new faces. So again, they have a longer shelf life. But I think my experience was be planful in terms of how you bring them to life, how you push them to your audiences online, and how also internally. It's so lovely. Some of the people who are in our campaigns, they share them themselves with their audiences. They made them their profile picture on LinkedIn. We have them run all the time on the plasma screens as you walk in Vodafone offices, and because they're our colleagues, it's always a more emotional, more inspiring piece of video that you share, because these are real people at Vodafone. They're not just some actors that were cast through an agency.
Yeah, we've seen that more and more with our other clients as well. There's this kind of trend of actually presenting the work and involving everybody in the office, and then this it really kind of brings everyone together at the end of the project to see this final thing that everyone's involved in. It's good, yeah. It seems to be a motivator for the culture.
Mm. I think we've just got a question from Helen Cummings. Thanks, Helen. I might just ask you it now. She says, how do you encourage or persuade leaders to do video? She's struggling to get people to take part with some really simple videos just for company updates and etc.
It's a tricky one. We've actually done some sessions of getting people to be more comfortable in front of camera, and we actually have a guy from California who's a startup entrepreneur, and just recently he was teaching our CEOs how to be more confident storytellers on camera, and boy, it was hard. So his technique was, it's only 1 minute, guys. Any message you want to portray, no more than 1 minute, and here's the storytelling and here's the pitching, right? We even have a physical kit for them with the camera, the tripod, and the lights. And it takes a lot of effort, but ultimately you have to take them on the journey with you and make them comfortable in front of camera and help them. Not everybody is comfortable. Not everybody is a great speaker, but they need to understand that. I think leaders of today, they have to be out there. They have to get kind of out of their comfort zone and train their storytelling skills also in front of cameras, because that's the name of the game these days, right? So it kind of comes with the territory. If you're a senior leader and you want to engage with your own people, you have to get better at that, right? Or at least decent at it, right? So we're doing a lot of coaching like that, and of course practice makes perfect, right? The more they do it, the more confident they get, and the more they like it, because especially when you put them on an internal intranet or on external and they see how much engagement they're getting, they kind of see that it works, right? It pays back.
Video, do it again and again and again.
Yeah, exactly. Then they'll come back for more.
Yeah. I think there are like there are use cases out there of people who have just built an incredible following internally by using video to communicate with their staff. And I guess if you can just go out and find some examples of those and share them, the proof is in the pudding, really. And there's a question from James Robinson. Thanks, James. How are you integrating film into your learning strategy?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, learning is happening on video now, full stop. If we look at the type of content people are most likely to consume at Vodafone, in external sources, YouTube and TED come top at any given time. And then we're lucky because I think the learning community got it. And even the biggest MOOCs, everybody has video content, right? So it's pretty much part, 90%, let's say, of our content right now is on video, both external and internal. Of course, just video is not enough. You still need, your good old PDF and interactive stuff and quizzes and so forth. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking at my kids. I didn't even realize my son is learning how to code on video. I don't know how he does it. I get the software bit. He's building his own computer, but now he's learning how to code on video. I still need to get into that and understand how it works. But
if we could have a chat with him.
I think, yeah, exactly. I think Generation Z, they learn everything on video.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and video has its challenges because it's shorter, right? So you have to have huge impact in a short period of time. Therefore, coming back to the storytelling, learning experts full stop, everybody has to be much better at their storytelling pitch. We don't have the luxury of, lots of pages and lots of time. Some people still read books, luckily for you, Nick, but
yeah.
no, I think they would prefer a video.
Yeah, for sure.
We've had another question in from Josh Dell. So which long-standing organizations are doing video well at the moment?
Oh gosh, a lot of people do video well. I mean, if I look at what Apple are doing, and I'm talking about employer brands, right? I mean, let's not talk about other type of content. I think my gold standard has always been Heineken. I'm just blown away by how they push the limits. And they have a campaign now that's going on for a couple of years with an interactive video, super gamified, that again, they reuse, they reinvent every year. They're just fantastic. But a lot of companies are doing a good job. I think I'm proud to say that we were probably one of the first who adopted this view of everything has to be with our own people, full stop. So we would never hire actors or any sort of generic content for employer brand, because again, that's where you bring authenticity. But again, if I look around, there's a lot of people doing really, really good stuff with video. I mean, I remember I think years ago, Deloitte did also some really good piece of work, also around interactive video. So there's a lot of good stuff out there. Yeah. So how you stand out, I think that's a big challenge right now when everybody's brilliant. How can you be brilliant plus?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a really important point. And one of the reasons why we wanted to do this first of a series of webinars with you, Catalina, is that I think historically it was all right. It was enough to do the video, and that was sort of differentiating enough just to have it. I think what we've sort of seen is that there's so much noise, there's so much video that unless you're doing the more creative end of the spectrum and the more sort of out there pushing it, like slightly chancing it, you're just more noise. You're just part of the noise. And so I think your tips around sort of building allies and working with the brand department to sort of try and get those more creative ideas through are really, really valuable. What I guess a question for me really, which is, what's been the most important learning, would you say, for you? Like, what do you wish you'd known when you started out on using video for employer brand? Catalina.
I think it's interesting. I was reflecting on that, and I thought maybe have a good brief, but not a brief in terms of telling the experts how to do their job, because ultimately, we are in HR, as much as we like to think we're not experts, right? Just the creative people are the experts, but brief in terms of being very clear what you want to achieve with the video, right? That's hard, yeah, because it's very tempting to say, I want these 100 things. You can't possibly have 100 things. You have to be very clear on the audience that you're targeting and the story you want to tell and the feeling you want people to have after they've seen it, and ultimately the action you want people to take if there is an action. And that's really hard, right? Again, there is a difference with with recruitment marketing campaigns when you have to target a very narrow group of people with a certain expertise, a certain background for a certain role. And there is another thing when you are more addressing, a bigger audience just to build brand awareness or brand consideration like we did with youth, right? But again, be very, and of course you have to also be, on message with your culture, with your, commercial brand. So there's a lot of things to take into consideration. So don't overestimate, the importance of, underestimate the importance of having a good brief. And when in doubt, ask the experts. We work with our brand teams who their briefing skills are obviously second to none, right? So, and then partner well, right? Have partners that are flexible, because guess what? The first brief will probably not be, the same as, you will see, the first end result, right? So you'll have to iterate and be flexible. And often partners are not flexible enough, and that's very frustrating, right? You don't like the end result, but you have to suck it up because there's no more budget or things like that. So learn how to brief and partner well.
Thanks, Kat. Now, at Casual, we've produced differentiating video content for Fortune 500 and FTSE 100 companies. We've produced around 10,000 videos over the years, which means that we've learned to navigate a lot of the pitfalls that we've talked about. We've certainly tried to build that flexibility that you talked about into our process. If you have a project that you'd like to discuss with someone on our global team of producers, they're standing by to take your call. Or I'll share a link in the webinar. And if you get in touch with us and have a film that you want to discuss, then we'll send you a copy of my book, The New Fire. We've covered a hell of a lot there. If you missed any of it, we're going to have a recording, as I mentioned, and we'll share that shortly. So you can get your slippers out tonight and a mug of cocoa and go around again. I guess before we just finish off, I'm just going to ask you, Ollie, what your key takeaway from today has been.
I think it's to not be scared of the creative approach and try to, like Catalina was saying, bring everyone on board nice and early. Try and get your partners involved nice and early so you can really work with them and develop that creative idea and try and get everyone into it first. That I think is the key thing, because everyone's a little bit scared about pushing an idea, but the more you can do it, the bigger the reward.
Great, thanks, Ollie. And Kat, if people could take one idea from what we've talked about today, what would you say it would be?
Often in HR, in employer brand, obviously we have budgets and we have KPIs, and you have to achieve certain things. Well, I look at creating good video content as a long-term investment, because you cannot measure how people feel, right? Unfortunately, I think maybe with AI at some point we will. And awareness and consideration is also marketers struggle with measuring that properly, right? So look at it as a long-term investment, and I think excite internal stakeholders and internal audiences with the idea of a long-term investment and the beauty of film and how you bring that culture and that brand to life, and not necessarily go and say, okay, so how many applicants do I have or how many awards have I won? And I know it's hard, right? But find that balance between your campaigns and doing the great content that brings you candidates every day and you can measure, and the long-term investment that ultimately will increase that kind of beginning of the funnel. And be playful and have fun. And I think maybe the last one, trust the experts, right? Partner with people who get the brand, and know their stuff, and they're great at what they do.
Thanks so much, Kat. I think my takeaway would be finding allies that you can bring with you to get the content that you really want to get made. Because it's a lot easier to find one or two people and really enthuse them than it is to just go back into the company and go, right, okay, this is my big idea, and have it fall flat. I thought that really resonated for me. I'm going to share a link to our contact page if anyone wants to get in touch. As I said, we'll send you a free book. I want to end by saying a massive thank you to Catalina for making the time to come and share your ideas with you. It's rattled by. We've filled the time. So I'm sorry, we're going to have to leave it there. We're a tiny bit over what I said we were going to do, but we're just about going to finish. So massive thank you to Kat for making the time. Really appreciate it. Thank you to Ollie. Ollie, have you got any final thoughts to add?
Cool Casual Films.
Cool Casual Films. So yeah, thank you so much to everyone for making this our first webinar in a series. As I said, we're going to be doing one on making the most of existing assets at the end of September. So keep an eye out for that, and have the best day. And we look forward to being in touch soon. So
thanks very much
from everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Cheers. Bye bye.
Thanks,
Cheers. Bye.